Welcome to another episode of The Right Equipment Right Now, a caregiver's guide to DME and assistive devices. I'm your host, Diane Carbo, RN, and this episode is sponsored by myvitalvault.net, your all-in-one life organizer for aging adults and caregivers. It's designed to help you securely store your essential legal, medical, and emergency information in one easy-to-access place. Because when a crisis hits, being prepared can make all the difference. Join our Caregiver Relief community, a warm, welcoming space where you can connect with other caregivers, ask questions, share stories, and find support from people who truly understand. Visit community.caregiverrelief.com to join now. Because caregiving is one of the hardest and most meaningful things you'll ever do, and no one should have to do it alone. And if this episode speaks to you, please take a moment to like, share, or comment. Every click helps us reach more caregivers who need encouragement, resources, and hope. I'm joined today by our trusted DME expert and regular contributor, Tara Slaughter, a BOC certified durable medical equipment specialist with over 30 years of experience. In today's episode, we'll be talking about wheelchairs, one of the most commonly prescribed pieces of equipment, but also one of the most misunderstood. Many people believe in a wheelchair is a one-size-fits-all solution, but the truth is far from it. The wrong chair can lead to poor posture, increased falls, injuries, and even serious medical complications. And while it's tempting to choose the cheapest option or rely solely on what insurance covers, doing so can be a costly mistake in the long run. Tara and I are here to guide you through what you really need to consider when selecting a wheelchair, not just for today, but for your loved one's future needs. And remember, if you have questions about any DME or assistive devices, visit caregiverrelief.com and submit those questions to our Ask the Expert section. Tara is here to help. You can also learn more or schedule a consultation directly with Tara at CFS Solutions. So let's get started. Hey, Tara, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm so excited about this topic. I'm a weird rehab nurse. And I know the challenges. So I'm glad you joined us today to help take the mystery out of wheelchairs.
You know what, Diane? Thank you for having me. And it's always exciting to be on with you. I tell you, I take something away every single time. And the wheelchairs, oh my gosh, that's a discussion that I love to have because we do find that you see so many patients in the standard basic wheelchairs that the insurance covers. And unfortunately, they're not for everyone. And so I'm glad that we're having that topic today.
So can you talk a little bit about the different types of wheelchairs available today and how do you begin to choose the right one for someone's needs?
First, there you have your basic standard ones that you see that you mostly see people in. I would say about 80% of people are using the basic standard wheelchair. And that's because that's normally what the insurance pays for. And that's normally the doctor will write for. But unfortunately, it's not always the best one because a standard wheelchair is used to first trick taking someone from one A to B, maybe 2 hours or something like that. But when you see, I have a patient that's going to be sitting in that particular chair all day, you're talking about sitting up in vertical position all day, that cannot be comfortable. And unfortunately, that's what they get. And they don't know any difference because no one's told them. And the crazy part about that is that you have patients that's in pain, right? Some can't even tell you they're in pain. Some don't understand why they're in pain, but because you're sitting there and it's not healthy for your spine or for your back and also for pressure sores.
I can tell you right now, in every nursing home in the country, there's a little old lady or little old man begging to go back to bed because they hurt sitting in their wheelchair. And one thing that makes me absolutely crazy is when somebody has a decube, a pressure sore on their bottom that they shouldn't be sitting on. And then because the rules say that they have to get up, which somebody should have intelligence and say, no, this is not a good thing to do. They'll put them, while they're trying to heal this pressure sore that they have, put them in the same forgive me, but put them in the same wheelchair over and for hours. And they wonder why the pressure sore isn't healing. And it's because people aren't using their heads. They need to have something different. And I always bring that up when I see people. And when I see people, and especially when I'm like, what are you doing getting a person with that size of a pressure sore or any size? Because even if it starts healing, quadriplegics have a really hard time with pressure sores. And once you get it started healing, they can break down easier again. And if they slide back into those bad habits of not changing their position, which a quadriplegic can't do, then we really have issues. And stroke patients have so many different issues as well. So I'm really excited about educating our listeners on what they need to do so that they get the best possible solution for them or their loved one at the right time with the right equipment. Tara, what's the biggest mistake people make when accepting a wheelchair from a hospital, rehab, or home health provider?
The mistake is not knowing if it's really going to be for you or your loved one. That's the first thing, right? So I think that one of the conversations need to be had that you can try to see if you can talk to a physical therapist or occupational therapist or someone who specializes in wheelchairs, just to see if you're getting the proper chair. Now, insurance does pay for chairs outside of the standard wheelchairs. And so they have the complex chairs. You have other chairs that you may have to come out of pocket on, your strong backs, your Brodas. Those are all more customized chairs. They are also good for down to you may have a certain diagnoses, but then depending on your breathing and things of that nature, if you're sitting up vertical, just a different chair that gives you a little bit of a tilt, maybe even for the lumbar part of the back, will belongs and you're even breathing better. So we've had clients that happen to just a simple change of a chair. And so people don't realize that. And the crazy part about that is that 70% of nursing homes, unfortunately, they have those standard wheelchairs and they're not even really conducive for that. They're not, because they're not designed for that. And so you have patients that's sitting in chairs for 9 to 11 hours a day. And unfortunately, I said one study shows that 58.6% of people in long-term care had inappropriate seating, leading to discomfort, skin integrity issues, and poor positioning.
Yeah.
And it is very critical that you as an advocate for your loved one or yourself, ask questions about the chair you're getting. Right? If there is something else that I can get, can I get evaluated? Can you look at my diagnosis, my report, to see if I qualify for something else a little bit more comfortable than that's going to prevent you from having low back pains or bed sores and things of that nature? And if you can't and you don't qualify for something else better than a standard wheelchair, then you can always try to think about a cushion, a certain type of seat cushion, not just any cushion, but one that's conducive to what you're dealing with. And that'll be a topic we'll talk about on another.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because a cushion makes all the difference in the world, but even those are all created equal and have to be specific. So why is it dangerous to assume that all wheelchairs are created equal or that insurance-approved models are always the best fit? I think we covered some of that already with the pain that people go through sitting in the wrong wheelchair. Chronic pain. I have my lumbar area, my neck, my shoulder. I mean, it's all from years of nursing and pulling and tugging on people and lifting them. I've tried to sit in wheelchairs of my clients over the years. And when they're screaming to be, please let me lay down. And that's the thing. You want people to get up. You want them to be able to get out and socialize. But if they're uncomfortable and they're hurting, or it doesn't feel right to them and it's not helping them, or it's limiting their activities, or start over. if it's limiting their activities, then it's not the right wheelchair for them, but it's the most neglected piece of equipment that nursing homes or all doctors and discharge planners take for granted is they all fit one size.
I think it's because it's the easiest thing to write for, right? I think because there's not enough conversation about it. And so when you think about patients, sometimes people just say, oh, let's just write this standard for a standard wheelchair. Yeah. And not realizing when someone's sitting that long period of time, that how uncomfortable it can be. And I think it's because it's the easiest thing that you can just write a prescription and you can qualify for it most of the time, depending on your medical necessity of it, what's going on with the patient. And just it's just the easy thing, because when you talk about going into other type of chairs, there is a process. You know, you got a occupational therapist involved or a PT involved, an ATP involved. So there's so many different layers that go into it. We even know people waiting 6 months to a year to get a complex rehab chair.
Wow.
Go into it. And of course, there's a lot of documentation that's needed. There's a lot of things that's required. But I tell people, when it comes to, you may have to pay out of pocket for a better chair.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you want your loved one to be comfortable.
Yes. Well, Medicare right now is Medicare has gone to a cost sharing platform, and that's why we have the high copays and the high deductibles to deter the use of benefits. So we are going to if you have the money and you want comfort, you're going to have to pay for it. It's just the nature of the insurance industry right now.
Yeah, Diane, and that is so true. I'll tell you about I think the study shows that of 2024, 500 billion with a B, big dollars was spent out of pocket for products that will better qualify. Yeah, because, certain things you're getting, if you look, I'll give you an example. I had a client and mother was in a facility and she was using a particular chair inside of the facility and she absolutely loved it, but she was in that rehab and it was what she would be definitely needing at home. It was the posh. It was great. It was that type of tilt and recline and all of that. And when she got home, they tried to get her. They're like, okay, we have this standard wheelchair. They weren't going to, because she didn't qualify for the tilt and recline and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
She looked at the other chair and she was like, I'm not going to sit in that. I'm just not. And she was able in it. She said, I want exactly what I was sitting in that rehab.
Exactly.
And we had a discussion about it. We did an assessment with them and they end up having to get their mother that chair that she was in the rehab. And I know it wasn't cheap, but they were for anything for our mom. Our mom is going to be comfortable. And you know what's so awesome about this particular one they got? You can actually sleep in it.
You can get familiar with some of those. Yes, I am. Yeah.
Patient in it. You can sleep in the chair. It's so much that you can do in the chair that it's unbelievable. I mean, you can transport it. Just an example, the patient has to go to some dialysis or a doctor's appointment, what have you, and they're using a transportation van or what have you. You can actually get the brackets on it where it can be transported where that loved one doesn't even have to get out the chair. It's so comfortable. And so there's different padding and different features, of course, because it's customized to the patient. But those type of things, those are investments. And when you have a loved one, then that's just what sometimes we have to do. And of course, there's financing available in most cases. But there are things out there that's better than the standard chair that, that we see patients in all the time. As I mentioned, 70% are in, or 80% over of patients that receive the standard chairs, and they are really not conducive. Actually, over 80%, give you another study, 82% require additional seating and positioning systems. Did you hear that?
Wow.
That are in chairs, 80% require additional seating and positioning systems like hip belts and support backrests, which standard chairs don't include. And that's research. So that just goes to show you how and so what do we do about it? We educate people on platforms like this.
Yes. So that that's why we're doing this whole series, because we want to help people make the right choices for themselves or their loved ones. Tara, you're talking about me taking a person's needs when recommending a wheelchair. What factors go beyond basic mobility that you would consider?
Your diagnoses. So if you have a Parkinson's patient, ALS, Huntington's patients, things like that, people with those type of diagnoses, you want to pick chairs that's conducive to those conditions because they are designed and engineered to know, oh, this patient has this particular condition, this particular chair would be a great option for them. We do consultations with families to determine, of course, going to a OT and a PT ideally, but normally what we do, even with them, when we work with OTs and PTs and AT, we have a conversation and we go over the different options together to determine based on that patient's condition, what will be conducive for them.
Tara, as an old rehab nurse, I'm well aware of all the bells and whistles that are necessary for a good wheelchair. And there's things like transferring and helping them get out of the chair. There's safety issues involved. What are some of the bells and whistles, the fancy stuff that is so important for comfort and safety that are needed, that most people need but aren't given? Like, the thing I think of is like arms being able to be removed or.
Exactly. So basically, an example, if you get a standard wheelchair from insurance or you just decide that your loved one needs one and you just go purchase one, then you want to make sure you get one that arms can either flip back or arms can be removed.
Yep.
Okay. So want to look at the desk arms because sometimes people get the fixed arms, the long arms, right? And if you have one and you would like them to be engaged with the family to sit up at the table to have dinner, or you guys are out having dinner somewhere, you want to be able to allow them to slide under, to get under the table too. You can't do that with a full arm rest chair. You can desk arm, right? So those are the things you want to look for. Again, going back to the arms removing for easy transferring, right? So that way, if you're having to lift the patient up, you don't have to lift them up and put them inside something or pick them up from the bed to just put them in a chair. You can actually use a sliding board and a lot of them slide over because those arms remove. So things like that. Another thing, depending on what's going on with your loved one, the tilt and recline, right?
Yep. That's huge.
And that's very huge because I know when you were tilting back and reclining, more so the tilt, tilt. A lot of chairs, standard chair, they don't have a tilt feature. Some more your advanced ones, the chairs that I was just talking about, have those advanced features. But those features are very important because it allows when you're sitting in a chair for a long period of time, or for depending on if you have any bed sores or lower back pains and things like that, it's taking that tilt is taking the pressure off the hip bones.
Yep.
Where you're not burning in the hip.
Yep.
Those are the things you want to look for. And if you have a Huntington's patient who has a lot of movement or a patient who have movement, you want to make sure that you get the appropriate seat, the cushion inside of that chair so they don't hurt themselves. So all of those things to be looked at. And we do that when you deal with a company who specializes in those type of things like us, or another company in your local area that specializes in complex rehab or customized chairs, and or an occupational therapist that you can reach out to with your doctor. And hopefully they would do that. Now, again, if they don't, depending on your condition or your diagnoses, they might not think that you qualify for that. So at that point, you're like advocating for yourself. And you're going to go out on your own to be able to get that for get a clinical assessment with a provider like myself or someone in your area to be able to make sure you get the appropriate chair. Now, let me say this to Diane. Even though we may not be in your area, we offer delivery and setup all across the country for certain products, right? You ever felt the need that you don't know which way to turn? You're like, oh my God, I don't even know how to figure this out. We do have a consultation side of CFS Medical Supplies and Equipment called CFS Solutions DBS, and that's the consulting side. So we consult with families, no matter where you are, to give you information on how to navigate, how to go about, even when you go to your local area, what questions to ask the doctor so that you can try to get what you need. Okay. So just know that service is available and you can get that one-on-one consultation.
I love that because there are, like, if somebody has a stroke, they have right or left-sided neglect. They can't move that arm, and getting in a wheelchair with there's swelling that can occur. There's so many things that can happen. They need special fittings that can be added to the wheelchair so that their arms aren't hanging down and developing edema and stuff. There's things that they need and can have added to a chair. Those are things as well. I know for me, and I know you know this stuff, I'm just pulling stuff out that I remember having to deal with. There are people that need neck support.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that goes back to the type of chair you would need for that.
Yeah.
So that's where your occupational therapist and your physical therapist come in at with those evaluations, right? To determine based on your diagnoses, based on your condition, what can benefit you, right? And that's where that comes in at. And if you feel like you have a family member out there and that's not being done, you definitely want to talk to the doctor and see like how can I get an occupational therapist or a physical therapist to evaluate my loved one, because I really feel that they would benefit for something else outside of the standard chair that was written for, right? And so that's a way to definitely advocate for your loved one. And I'll go back to this too, depending on, again, even if you got a standard chair, if you have edema, you want to make sure that your loved one get elevating leg rest.
Yeah.
You got patients now, granted, they may just be able to qualify for a standard chair, but if they have certain conditions, even though they're getting a standard chair, they may qualify for even elevating leg rest on that standard chair.
Okay.
It can elevate, right?
Yes.
And that's things of that nature in the heart. So all those things to be considered, but you won't know that if you just go online and order that stuff alone. You definitely want to go to your local provider, or again, if you don't have someone in your area, or if they don't specialize in certain things, we have that division where you definitely can get that one-on-one consultation.
Awesome. Now, what role does body size, strength, posture, and endurance play in choosing the right wheelchair?
Oh my God, that's critical. That's where measurements come in at. So, right? So you're measuring patients, you need the measurements, their girth. And so what is the girth? When you sit down, we spread, right? So you hear that, because sometimes I have clients where they're like, oh, the doctor wrote for a wheelchair, or they're just looking for something out of pocket, right? So it's just, wheelchair, I think an 18-inch. And then we start asking questions. What is the girth? And what is that? When their loved ones sit down, how far are they from hip to hip, right? And so by the time we get through doing our assessment with them, they may need a 20-inch or a 22-inch wide. Now, even if they're under 300 pounds, and that weight capacity is going to be there for them, the width of the chair could be so critical. Again, it depends on what they have going on with them too. They maybe have some sensitive skin issues on the side of their hip bones, all those type of things. You want to get a clinical assessment so you understand the appropriate chair that even if you're paying out of pocket, you want to get a clinical assessment, because at that point, you know what type of chair you want to get. The material of the chair also too. And those are things that you want to look at. The type of material, the chair, is it giving? The seat cushion you're going to be getting your loved one, all those type of things that you want to definitely look at.
So here's something that I think everybody neglects to discuss. I know you don't, because we've talked, but how do caregiver needs factor into the decision, especially if someone else will be pushing or lifting that chair?
Oh, that's so critical. So now we go back to your basic standard versus your lightweight chairs and all of that. So now the standard wheelchairs, now I have to say this, depending on who the caretaker is, some of the chairs that's provided now, I can't speak for everyone, but I know for some of our chairs, the standard one weight is about 38 pounds. 38 pounds it can be quite heavy for some.
Yeah.
For me, or maybe someone else, that may be easy to lift up and down. But when you're taking someone in and out of a car and you're lifting the chair like that every day or every other day, it could eventually hurt you as a caregiver.
Yeah, I just want to say, I used to be very strong. At 72, with all my aches and pains, if I had a spouse that had a wheelchair, I couldn't do even 38 pounds. And I used to weight lift, but my body's broken. And there are so many spouses out there caring for a loved one, and the expectation that they can do it all is overwhelming. So I really thought it was important that you address that, because I know that people don't think about that when they're looking for a wheelchair.
The weight of a standard wheelchair is an example. So if the wheelchair is coming from the insurance, you're going to get your basic standard one, what have you. And then it could be around 38 pounds. And then you have what's called the lightweight. So you can get some lightweights depending on the medical necessity qualifications. But if you don't qualify for any of that, because one thing about the insurance, they're not looking at it like, okay, Diane, okay, your loved one qualifies for this particular standard chair, but because you can't lift this chair, doesn't mean they're going to give you a lightweight. So it's not based on, oh, because someone can't lift it. It has to be medical and necessity for the patient.
Yeah.
So that is that's where you as an advocate or your loved one, you want to make sure that you get them something that you feel you can lift. You may have to come out of pocket for it. So I'll give you like an example for a strong back chair. Those chairs are like 16 pounds, 15, 16 pounds. And if you take those little wheels off of the side, that evens down to 13 pounds. So
wow.
Yes, so they're very light, and they're a wheelchair. The person can still propel themselves if they need to. But you as a caregiver, you now don't have to keep lifting. And that's one of the things we get all the time. They're like, oh my gosh, Tara, we got this wheelchair from the insurance, but I just can't do it any longer. I just can't take it anymore. And then I'm like, what? Let's go over this. And that's when we do the assessment. And then they may even transfer over to a transport chair because it's lighter, but they still can push the patient and do what they need to do. But it's still much lighter for them because that's a lot to try to lift something like that. It really is.
I listen, I know, because I struggle, and I'm short, I'm 5'2", and I was always strong because of the type of nursing that I did. I lifted weights and stuff. And at 72, I can't lift heavy anymore. And I can't even lift weights anymore. I have to do resistance bands and yoga and Tai Chi because my body can't handle the heaviness of the weight. And I can tell you right now, caregivers get injured and suffer so much because nobody addressed their issues as well. So they have to learn to advocate for themselves.
Exactly. And they see a chair is too heavy, you need to address it immediately. If you are a caregiver or caretaker and you're taking care of someone and the insurance has provided a particular chair, or a loved one has provided a particular chair for the the patient you're taking care of, you have to have that conversation, because if not, you're not going to be there long. Yep. Because you're going to be broken down. The conversation, if you can just talk to someone, communication is so key. Hey, is there a possibility we can get something maybe lighter? You can look into it. And then you'll be surprised, families, they say closed mouths don't get fed, right? So you have to be able to advocate for yourself. Yes. As giver, and even if it's your loved one or if it's someone outside of your family that you're taking care of, you need to be able to have that conversation, because it's so critical that you'll be able to lift something that is going to be helpful to you as well.
Yes. And Medicare only allows for a 15-minute visit in the doctor's office. So I encourage everybody, when you're dealing in the hospital with a doctor or a therapist or whatever, physical therapist or OT, write those questions down and think about them, or contact Tara to say, what should I be asking? Because you really want to be prepared to get your questions answered in a timely fashion, and feel confident that you're asking the right questions as well.
Exactly. And what I did to Diane is I felt the need to be able to give people some information that could just be helpful to them. Subscription under CFS Solutions DBS, where that subscription, you can go on there and it gives you about an hour of information about what to ask the doctor, what to ask the insurance, what to say, what questions, what to look for. If you get a prescription, and it says this, what to ask for. Does it have the diagnoses on there? Does it have the length of need and all the things that you would need to see if the insurance would cover it, but also just things that may be missing that you didn't even think of to ask. Yes. It's like you talked about, making sure they have things written down so you know what to ask the doctor. That's on there. Also, there's video modules that show you chairs and the different type of chairs and the type what they would do and what they won't do. And so those are things that I think that we definitely have to have accessible to families. So they, even down to the billing codes.
Now that's really important. I can tell you right now. Yeah, no, and families don't understand that. And that's why I love that what you're offering is priceless. You can't get that information from just anybody because nobody takes the time to communicate or to educate like they need to anymore. It's just so frustrating. And that's why I'm so glad we're partnering because I want my listeners and your listeners to know that we have solutions for you. For every problem, there's a solution, and we can help you find the right one for you.
Exactly. And the thing of it is that there's not, like you would always say, one size does not fit all. Let me tell you that right now. One size does not fit all because what one person is using and it's working for them, it may not work for you. And we get our clients, oh, I saw Miss So-and-so using a wheelchair or a particular chair or a walker or whatever. And I wanted to try to get the same thing. Let's talk about that thing because what Miss or Mr. may be using, it may not work for you.
Yes.
You may need something less advanced. You may need something more advanced depending on what's going on with you and what based on your particular diagnosis of condition is known statistically with data to show it may be an increase of something, right?
Yep.
So if you see Ms. Jones using a fixed arm and you like the chair they had, you may want to get an arm that has removable arms because your diagnosis may be different from that person's.
Yes.
We call that what? Future proofing. So go ahead and get you something that's going to work for you. You won't know that unless you speak to someone who can do a clinical assessment with you, find out what you have going on and your caregiver have going on. And then you guys make that determination based on what you have going on. Don't go wasting your money buying something because you see someone else using it because it may not work for you.
Tara, when you just mentioned what my next question was going to be about, why is it important to consider future needs, such as declining strength or progressive condition when choosing a wheelchair now?
It goes back to what we talked about earlier versus the fixed arm versus the removable or flip back arms.
Mm-hmm.
And someone using a fixed arm, it could be perfectly fine for them because they're maybe able to get up out the chair good and all is good and well. But you don't know in a couple of months if you'll be able to do the same thing. And now you have a caregiver or a loved one or yourself who can't remove those arms to transfer over to your bed. Because you may not need a caregiver as per se, right? But you may be having some type of a condition that you can't even put your arms down to try to lift yourself or push yourself out of the chair. Yep. And if you can't do that, the next best thing for you, especially if you are by yourself, is a transfer board where you can move those arms out the way and get on that transfer board and slide yourself in your bed or to your sofa. Mm-hmm. Those are things that you want to look for. So that's critical for that. That's what I would say to future proof. I would say to look into that based on what you have going on. Now, again, if you've just had some type of basic surgery, you don't need all that. You're not even going to be using this for a long period of time, maybe 3-4 months, and you'll be done. By all means, the fixed arms could be great for you. But if you have a certain type of condition that could possibly progress based on the diagnoses and things that maybe you were dealing with, then that's when you want to start getting things that can be conducive to you so you don't have to worry about going to buy another chair again.
You know, when we're talking about this, I think about the little tiny old ladies, the ones under 5 feet, that 100 pounds, 110 pounds soaking wet and in a standard chair, and they look like they're in a big boy chair compared to other people. And over the decades, I've seen these little old ladies with their arms up on the arms of the wheelchair, trying to sit there and get comfortable, and they can't because it's too big.
Because it's a loaner or it's just another part of the facility's chair.
Yeah.
It's on that patient and making sure what's going to be working for them based on their size, their width, so they will be comfortable in the chair. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen. And that's an unfortunate part of it. It goes back again. It's if you're in a facility or nursing home, it's just not happening. And so it's upon us as family members or patient advocates to for patients to say, hey, what you thought? Have you thought about trying this for them?
So I know we addressed this earlier, but I just want to go over it one more time for my listeners. People need to hear something 6 or 7 times before it sinks into their brain. Yeah, and that's true. What happens if it's not fitted correctly? That's a big one.
Wow. And eventually you're going to have some lumbar problems going on, spinal problems going on. You may end up start having some sores on the buttock area because of the sitting and things of that nature. And so those are the things that you start to see.
Yeah.
Pain, hip bones, people are slouching in the chair, because the chair is not even, you can't do good. It's vertical. So what else can you do? Slouch eventually, right? And those are the things you look for. And just even down to your breathing, you can open up the lungs if you have the person in an appropriate chair as well. So those are the type of things that you definitely want to look for. And that's what it causes, those type of things. And it's unfortunate.
One of the things I hate to see, and it always makes me sad, I know that's crazy, but they're sitting in this ill-fitting chair and their heads hanging down, and that neck has got to hurt. And sometimes I walk past some people I have in the past where they've got their heads holding on to their hands, like they're bent over with their hands to their head, resting on their knees because they can't get comfortable. And it's because they can't tilt back to get comfortable.
Exactly, because the chair they're in does not tilt. It doesn't even recline. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
Oh, no, I was going to say, even if you you have recliner chairs too, right? If you can't afford a more expensive, like the Brodas of the world, then you have regular reclining chairs. Now they recline back. They don't have a tilt feature, but they do recline to give you some type of support. And they have the headrest because they're high enough, the high backs, and they have the little thing those can be really good for you. Again, it depends on what's going on with your loved one. Now, the insurance does pay for those, the reclining chairs, again, but it goes back to you have to have an evaluation from an occupational therapist or a physical therapist. You don't need an ATP for that. An occupational therapist and a physical therapist, along with a doctor, they can determine you needing that, but that documentation does have to be there in order for the insurance to approve that. You can't be just, I just want a reclining chair. It's not as easy to get as a standard chair, but those are definitely things that you can look for, and that would help that neck support because it's a high back at the top. If you can't, the other chairs that's out there, because what you talk about, what happens because of those basic chairs, you come up pressure injuries, poor posture, and discomfort and fatigue. So you talk about people having their head bent over in their hand, and they're like, oh my God, what in the world? What they're saying at that moment, Diane, is I'm in so much pain here. If can anybody get out this chair? But it goes back to a lot of our loved ones don't want to say anything, Diane. They'll suffer in silence and pain.
I've seen it. They feel like they're invisible and they don't have a voice. Because they've tried so many times to get attention or need something and it's ignored. So I've seen it, and so many seniors feel broken when they're sitting in the wrong chair, and they don't care. They think nobody cares, so they just suck it up, and it's really sad. It just makes me sad. So.
The family, and you have family member out there. Look at what they're sitting in.
Yes.
How comfortable? Are you comfortable, Mom? Are you comfortable, Dad? And based on how they're sitting, if they're moving around a lot and all those type of things, or they look like they're just in agony, you as a family member have to be able to advocate and take the lead right then and there.
Yes. How can caregivers or family members get a second opinion or consultation when they're unsure about what's been prescribed? And I think that's really important to do anyway, because you want to make sure you're getting the right equipment.
I would say first, if you have a doctor and you're talking to him, I would say first try with the doctor first.
Okay.
And if there's not budging or I think you'd be good. But I think when the family really is adamant about, you have to be that advocate for your loved one. Say, you know what, doctor, my mom, she's been sitting in this chair and I know she's not comfortable. She's sitting vertical every day. And I would like for her to have something else. Now, it doesn't mean that she's going to qualify But then at that point, maybe you have to hire someone independently to evaluate your loved one too. There are services out there where if you feel like you're not getting what you need, you may have to see if you can find an ATP or a physical therapist or an occupational therapist who can do an independent evaluation. Those are things out there that you could do as well to find out, do you think my mom or because sometimes people they don't want to say anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's up to you to just make sure that your loved one is in an appropriate chair. And so that's what I would say.
Before we go and end this interview, I thought that we could discuss wheelchair etiquette. I'd like to, because people don't understand that people in the wheelchair can be normal people. They're alert, they're oriented, and they would like interaction. And instead, I've seen so many terrible things that happen with a person in a wheelchair. I get embarrassed because unless they're in that situation, they don't know. So I thought we'd just talk a little bit about how to be with somebody that's in a wheelchair.
Well, first of all, I would say that you treat them just like you would treat anyone else.
Yes.
Just because someone's in a wheelchair does not make them less than any one of us.
Yes.
I say us, any of us, because the thing of it is life's right? And none of us know when we will be in a chair. We just don't know. And so I think that it's upon us as individuals. It depends on what kind of person you are.
Yeah.
What is your character? What drives you? So if you're going to be mean to someone who's in a chair or treat them different, then that shows the character of within yourself. So that's kind of tough to say, Diane, because for me, you got to have compassion for people. Yeah. Some people have compassion, some people don't. And so being in a wheelchair shouldn't change your perspective of how you treat someone. And you don't have to treat them like a handicap, like someone who's different or handicapped or anything like that, because they just want to be treated the same. They're just having a moment, right?
Yes. My son was 30 years old when he developed a severe pain condition. And if we wanted to do something, he could walk with a cane, but he couldn't walk very long. And when we were down at the Smithsonian Institute in DC, him and I went down for a few days, and I got a wheelchair for him. Oh, Lord. The way that people reacted when we were going through the museum was so offensive. I just would say, "Excuse me," because they would walk in front of him like they didn't see him and like he wasn't looking at something. The rudeness of people was awful. And I was shocked because being a rehab nurse, I'm so used to being around wheelchairs and you get sensitive to their needs. And I've seen people walk in front of Jeff when he's sitting in line waiting to make an order for a drink or something. And it was like they didn't care. I don't know what they thought, that he was invisible or that he wasn't mentally capable of saying anything to him. But man, Jeff wouldn't. He was a soldier. He was proud. And he was a big guy. He was big. He was big and he was a ginger. And he always had good posture. And he felt ignored and invisible. So me, Mama Bear, would say, "Excuse me."
Right, as you should.
You know what else people do that people in wheelchairs don't is you have to ask them if you can move them. Don't think just because they're in a chair that you can just take them wherever you want them to go. This is their way of getting around. And it's so important that you ask for permission to take them, to move them to another location, or ask them, "Do you want to go somewhere else?"
Exactly. That's a great point you made, Diane, because it goes back to treating people the right way, but with respect and the same token.
Yes.
I treat them different, but respectfully.
And I can't tell you how many times, and it makes me giggle now, but at the time I was just angry. People look at somebody in a wheelchair and they talk down to them, or they don't make eye contact with them. My first thing when I'm someone in a wheelchair is I'm bending down or I'm grabbing a chair and sitting next to them so that I can make eye contact and have a conversation with them. And I speak normally. I'm not yelling. It's not their hearing that's affected.
Exactly. And I think too, people just don't know. And I think sometimes people are afraid they don't even know what to say. They don't know. And so I think that's why it's good to have these conversations that we're having so that people can hear it and they can know, oh, I didn't even know that. And we're human, right? And it happens. It doesn't make a bad person. And some people are rude and they're just rude to be rude. But I think a lot of people, they just don't know and they don't know what to say or how to act or gotta go about it. And so that's why it's good to have these conversations so that when someone hears this and they know someone or see someone in a wheelchair, they can say, oh, you know what? I know how to handle that. You know what I'm saying? Like just respectfully and being kind to people. And I don't care if you're in a wheelchair or you're wherever you're in or in nothing. It's just okay to be kind to people.
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly it. And the biggest thing I can tell people is if you are interacting with someone in a wheelchair, feel free to ask them, is there anything I can do with you, for you? Is there anything you can tell me that about your situation in the wheelchair? There's things you can ask to see if they need assistance or help, but also to have them have a better experience. And it's a learning experience for the able-bodied person as well.
And you almost have to ask, because I do know that sometimes you have clients sometimes and they say, you don't have to, when you ask them, like, is there anything I can help you with? Some people don't like that. You know, you don't have to ask me that. You don't have to treat me different. I'm like, oh, not treating you different. I was just asking, but it's just, you have it, you want to help, right? Sometimes they don't like that. So it's hard to gauge sometimes. And you just gotta, it's one of those things where, because some people don't want to treat them any. They don't want you to say, oh, I'll get the door for you. Oh, I can get the door myself. And so I've had a lot of that sometimes, but it's just,
that's on the person that's in the wheelchair. There are well-meaning people out there, and I've seen that too. I just want people to understand that if someone in the wheelchair says to you, no, I don't need help, don't take that personally. They're feeling insecure or embarrassed or whatever. That's their issue. It's not yours. As long as you're respectful and you are sincere in your approach, don't feel bad if they yell at you. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're in pain. Maybe their boyfriend just broke up with them or something. You don't know. So don't take things personally. It's better to ask than to not ask. And if they yell at you, just say, I'm sorry I offended you. I had good intentions. And I've been told a million times, the road to good intentions or the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I get that. But it's better to ask than to ignore. It's to at least acknowledge that they're in the room.
Exactly. That right there is so critical and so important. I would just say, be kind and just remember, any of us can be in a chair. Any of us can end up in positions that we never thought we would end up at.
Up somewhere, sooner or later. And
exactly. And I always say that I would want to know if I was in any type of situation that someone would give me grace.
Yep.
So I think when people start realizing that life you just never know. Like things change. And I'll give you an example. I had a gentleman and he was regular. He said he worked out. He was just a regular person, like just up it every day, very athletic, and did all this exercising and walked. I think he said he went on 5 miles a day or something, like really. Wow. I was like, wow, impressed. And he was doing something as simple as was laying on his bed and he crossed over and pushed his foot against his dresser or something like that. And I don't know exactly how it happened, but his leg got stuck. Side of between the dresser and the bed.
Whoops.
And he couldn't get it out.
Yeah.
He was there until his ex-wife came. Days later. But at that point, he had lost all sensation of his leg. They had to amputate his leg. Now in a wheelchair, and he's an amputee.
Yep.
And he's had some struggles on just trying to even get the appropriate chair and the cushion for himself. But my point to that is that it could happen to any of us. And he said, if anyone would have told me this would have happened to me, and it was just a simple accident. It wasn't even I'm saying, think about that. You're in your home. He just he was trying to grab his keys or something. He was saying he tried to reach over on his bed and get his key and was pushing it. However he pushed off. And either way, He was a regular, doing regular things and end up in a chair. Not that we're not regular, but my point to that is he ended up in a position that he never thought he would be in. And now he's in a wheelchair and he's an amputee now. So
I've taken care of the 18 to 24 young adult males. They're invincible. And I can't tell you how many that have dove from a high spot into shallow water or did something foolish that they became a quad or a para and their whole lives changed in an instant. But it's the same thing for a person who has a stroke or even MS. After a while, you may end up, highly likely, you're going to end up in a wheelchair. So there's all kinds of neurodegenerative disorders out there. And we just have to be aware that it could be us one day. So be kind, be patient, and be respectful.
Exactly. And so if nothing else, be kind.
Yes. Tara, thanks so much for today. I really appreciate this. I'm loving that we're doing this series. I want you to tell people how they can reach you, please.
Yes, you can reach us by calling 310-817-5373, or you can go to our website at www.cfs, that's Charlie Frank Sam, medicalequipment.com. And with further consultations or the subscription to check out some things there and get all this great information as well, you can go to www.cfs, that's Charlie Frank Sam, solutionsdbs.com, cfssolutionsdbs.com. And as always, be kind to someone and just try. I hope that this episode was good to someone and they could take something away from it to make sure that you pick the right chair for your loved one.
Thanks again, Tara. And to my family caregivers out there, you are the most important part of the caregiving equation. It's so important that you practice self-care every day. Learn to be gentle with yourself because you are worth it.